Hi, I'm Angelica. After 3 weeks in the hospital recovering from a hip replacement, I was beyond ready to sleep in my own bed. My son Michael's visits had grown increasingly brief and uncomfortable during my stay, but I chalked it up to his busy work schedule and the stress of managing both a career and checking on his mother daily. Need help with your bags, Angie? My neighbor Doris asked. Her kind eyes creased with concern as she placed my suitcase on the walkway. Doris had been my friend for over 30 years, ever since she moved in next door with her young family. No thanks, dear. The physical therapist says I need to practice normal movements anyway, I replied, adjusting my grip on the walker. Michael said he'd be home to help me settle in. Mentioned something about a surprise waiting for me. That's nice, Doris said, though her tone suggested otherwise. That's his car in the driveway, isn't it? And isn't that Vanessa's parents' SUV behind it? That fancy black one with the tinted windows? I frowned, a knot forming in my stomach. I wonder why Catherine and Richard are here. They barely acknowledged me at the wedding last year. Catherine spent the entire reception commenting on how my home was quaint, but desperately in need of updating. Want me to come in with you? Doris offered, her expression darkening. Something doesn't feel right about this little welcoming committee. I'll be fine, I said, waving her off with more confidence than I felt. Thanks for the ride. I've dealt with worse than my daughter-in-law and her uppity parents. Call me later, Doris insisted. Promise me, Angie. I promise, I nodded, slowly making my way up the path to my house, the home where I'd raised Michael alone after his father's heart attack 28 years ago. I hadn't reached the porch when the front door opened. Vanessa stood there with her parents flanking her like bodyguards. Her perfectly highlighted hair and designer outfit contrasted sharply with her cold expression. Angelica, she said curtly, not moving to help me or stepping aside. Vanessa? Is something wrong? Where's Michael? I asked, struggling with my walker on the uneven path. Inside, she replied coolly. But before you go in, we need to talk. She glanced at her father, who nodded slightly. We've decided it would be best if you found somewhere else to live. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Excuse me? What do you mean? Catherine stepped forward, her diamond earrings catching the afternoon light. What my daughter is trying to say, Angelica, is that this situation isn't working anymore. Michael agrees. It's time for assisted living. For your own safety. This is my house, I said slowly, my grip tightening on my walker. I don't understand. I've lived here for 42 years. I paid off the mortgage 15 years ago. Richard cleared his throat, his voice carrying that same condescending tone he'd used at every family gathering. Actually, Angelica, it's not your house anymore. While you were in the hospital, Michael had you declared incompetent and transferred the deed to his name. It's for your own good. You can't take care of yourself. That fall proved it. That's impossible, I whispered, feeling dizzy. I'm perfectly competent. My doctor would never sign off on something like that. Dr. Reynolds has been my physician for decades. We found the right doctor, Vanessa said with a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. One who understands family concerns. You have 2 days to make arrangements before we move your things to Sunny Pines Retirement Home. They have an opening in their assisted living wing, and we've already paid your first month. Where's Michael? I demanded, anger replacing my shock. I want to speak to my son right now. Michael appeared behind them, looking thinner than when I had last seen him, with dark circles under his eyes. He couldn't meet my gaze. Mom, it's for the best. You fell and broke your hip. What if next time it's worse? What if no one's here to help you? So your solution is to steal my home? My voice broke as I stared at my only child. Michael, how could you do this? After everything we've been through together. I raised you in this house after your father died. We're not stealing anything, Michael muttered. We're just making sure you're safe. Don't be dramatic, Angelica, Catherine interjected, examining her manicure. He's doing what any responsible son would do. Your generation always wants to burden your children with your care. This is much more dignified for everyone. Just then, my phone rang. I fumbled to answer it, never taking my eyes off the 4 people blocking the entrance to my home. Angelica? It's Eleanor from the hospital social services department. I've been trying to reach you. There seems to be some confusion about your discharge plan. Did someone tell you that you'd been declared incompetent? Because I'm looking at your file right now, and there's absolutely no such documentation. I felt a surge of relief as I put the phone on speaker. Eleanor, can you repeat that for my son and daughter-in-law? They seem to be under the impression that I've been declared incompetent and that my son now owns my house. Eleanor's voice came through clearly. There is absolutely no competency hearing on record for you, Mrs. Martinez, and property transfers require proper legal documentation and your signature, unless they're claiming you signed something, because that would be fraud and I'd be obligated to report it immediately. Vanessa's face paled as she glanced nervously at her parents. Catherine took a step back while Richard's jaw tightened visibly. No, I said firmly, meeting my daughter-in-law's gaze. I signed nothing, and I'm not going anywhere. This is all a misunderstanding, Michael stammered, looking panicked. We were just concerned about Mom's welfare, that's all. Is that why you told me you owned my house now? I asked. Is that why you're already showing it to real estate agents? Michael's eyes widened. How did you? Doris saw everything, I said. You know, the neighbor who's been looking out for me for 30 years? Unlike my own son? Mom, please. Michael started. I think you should leave now, I interrupted, feeling stronger by the second. All of you. And Michael, take only what belongs to you. I'll be checking my valuables and bank accounts as soon as you're gone. That night, I barely slept, the betrayal cutting deeper than any surgical incision. By morning, I'd discovered my jewelry box emptied and suspicious withdrawals from my accounts totaling nearly $50,000. With shaking hands, I called the police. Detective Harris arrived promptly, a tall man with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Elder fraud is one of the most underreported crimes we see, he explained, taking meticulous notes. And when family's involved, it's particularly devastating. Eleanor from Hospital Social Services joined us, bringing copies of my medical records. There's absolutely nothing here indicating cognitive impairment, she confirmed, spreading the documents across my kitchen table. In fact, your cognitive assessments were excellent. The question is, Detective Harris said, how far do you want to take this, Mrs. Martinez? I stared at my empty jewelry box, running my fingers over the velvet lining where my wedding ring had rested for decades after my husband's death. As far as necessary, I replied, a newfound resolve hardening within me. This isn't just about me. If they do this to me, they do it to someone else. When Doris and Meredith arrived with their testimonies, the full picture became clearer and more disturbing. This wasn't a hasty decision. It was a calculated plan months in the making. I never thought Michael capable of this, I whispered as Detective Harris prepared to leave. Where did I go wrong with him? You didn't, Eleanor said firmly. Some people make their own choices, regardless of how they were raised. And right now, you need to protect yourself. 3 days later, I sat in the living room of my home, waiting for Michael and Vanessa to arrive. After filing the police report, Detective Harris had recovered most of my jewelry from pawn shops across town and frozen the remaining funds in the fraudulent accounts Michael had created. Are you sure you want to do this? My attorney, Sophia Reyes, asked from beside me on the couch. We could handle everything through legal channels. I need to look them in the eyes, I insisted. I need them to see that I'm not some confused old woman they can manipulate. Doris squeezed my hand. We're all here for you, Angie. They're here, Eleanor announced from her position by the window. The doorbell rang, and Detective Harris answered it, escorting Michael and Vanessa into the living room. Vanessa's usual confidence had evaporated, replaced by barely concealed anger. Michael looked haggard, his eyes darting around the room, taking in the assembled witnesses. Sit down, I said, gesturing to the chairs across from me. They complied silently. This conversation is being recorded, Detective Harris explained. Mom, please, Michael began immediately. This whole thing got out of hand. We never meant for me to find out, I interrupted. That's different from never meaning to do it. Angelica, Vanessa attempted a conciliatory tone. We were worried about you living alone after your surgery. The plan got twisted somewhere along the way. The plan to declare me incompetent, steal my house, empty my bank accounts, and sell my family heirlooms? That plan? It wasn't like that, Michael protested. Then what was it like, Michael? I demanded. Explain how taking everything I own was an act of love. We were going to take care of you, Vanessa snapped. You should be grateful we didn't just dump you in a nursing home. Vanessa, Michael hissed. There it is, Sophia commented. The truth comes out. My client has documentation of everything you attempted, Sophia continued professionally. The fraudulent competency claims, the unauthorized bank withdrawals, the theft of personal property. You're facing serious charges. What do you want? Vanessa asked bluntly. Money? Fine, we'll pay back whatever Michael took. I want justice, I replied. And I want to understand why, Michael. I gave you everything. I raised you alone after your father died. Why would you do this? I didn't think of it as doing something to you, he mumbled. Vanessa said it made financial sense. That you'd be happier not having to worry about house maintenance and bills. So you decided to steal instead of asking what I wanted? We knew you'd say no, Vanessa exclaimed. You're so stubborn about your independence. That wasn't your decision to make, Eleanor interjected. Stay out of this. This is family business. Family business? Is that what you call elder abuse and fraud now? Mom, please, Michael begged. I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I'll do anything to make this right, Michael pleaded. Please don't press charges. You should have thought of that before you tried to destroy mine, I replied. This is ridiculous. Vanessa stood, face flushed. You vindictive old woman. You're doing this because you can't stand that Michael loves me more than you. Sit down, Detective Harris ordered, or I'll arrest you right now. Go ahead and press charges, Vanessa spat. See if your precious son ever speaks to you again. I already lost my child, I said quietly, the moment he chose to betray me. Vanessa lunged forward, knocking over the coffee table. You miserable, selfish. Detective Harris restrained her. Vanessa Martinez, you're under arrest for attempted assault and the documented charges of fraud and theft. Michael Martinez, another officer stepped forward. You're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, theft, and elder abuse. Mom! Michael cried as he was handcuffed. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I watched silently as they were led away. Are you okay? Doris asked gently. No, I answered honestly, but I will be. All rise, the bailiff called as the judge entered 6 months later. I stood with Sophia, watching Michael and Vanessa being brought in. The trial had been quick, the evidence overwhelming. Before I pronounce sentence, Judge Wilson said, Does either of you wish to make a statement? Vanessa shook her head. Michael stood. Your Honor, I want to apologize to my mother. What we did was inexcusable. I betrayed the person who has always been there for me. Mrs. Martinez, would you like to address the court? I rose with my cane. The past months have been the most painful of my life. Not because of my hip replacement, but because I lost my son. I trusted Michael with everything. That trust was violated in the worst possible way. I looked directly at Michael. I raised you better than this. I taught you about honesty and respect. Somewhere along the way, you forgot those lessons. I sentence you each to 18 months in prison, the judge announced, with 5 years probation. You are also ordered to pay full restitution. As they were led away, Michael looked back at me pleadingly. I remained seated, expression unchanged. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by my new support system, I felt a weight lifting. What now? Eleanor asked as we walked slowly to Doris's car. Now I live my life, I replied. I'm installing security cameras, updating my will to exclude Michael, and volunteering at the hospital's elder advocacy program. Will you ever tell him why you did it? Eleanor asked quietly. Not the charges. They were warranted. But why you couldn't let it go? I paused, considering her question. It wasn't just about the house or the money, I said finally. It was about dignity, about being treated like a person, not a problem to solve or a resource to exploit. Michael needed to understand that I'm not just his mother. I'm a person with rights and feelings. And what about Michael? Doris asked carefully. When he's released? That's up to him, I said firmly. If he wants to make amends, he can start by divorcing Vanessa and getting counseling. But I won't hold my breath. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Michael, full of apologies and promises to change. Dear Mom, it read. There are no words to express how deeply I regret what I did. I let greed and Vanessa's influence cloud my judgment. I betrayed the most important person in my life. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope someday you might at least let me try to earn it back. I'm filing for divorce next week. I've lost everything that matters. My freedom, my marriage, and most importantly, your trust. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends, even if you never speak to me again. With eternal regret and love, Michael. I read it once, then filed it away without responding. That evening, as my friends gathered for our weekly dinner, Meredith asked, Will you ever forgive him, Angelica? I considered the question. Forgiveness isn't the same as reconciliation, I said finally. I may someday find peace with what happened, but trust, once broken that completely, can never be fully restored. To new beginnings, Eleanor proposed, raising her glass. And to standing your ground, Doris added. To justice, Sophia contributed. To found family, Meredith said softly. I raised my glass with a smile. To all of that, and to the strength we never know we have until we need it. As we clinked glasses, I wondered, have you ever had to stand up to family who betrayed you? What would you have done in my place?